But the heart wall does create isolation, feelings of numbness and depression, and it creates an abundance block for you if you have a heart wall. Because really, your best creation's in there, in that heart of yours. And I always think about Steve Jobs and all that he was able to create. And if you ever have a chance to listen to his commencement address, he spoke at Stanford in 2004. And he told these students, he said, somehow your heart already knows what you can create and what you need to create. And I believe that totally. You got to follow your heart. But if you've got a heart wall, then it's so much harder. And it's up to us. Nobody else is going to do this. Nobody else is going to clear these heart walls. It's up to us. We have to do it. And we can. And it's not that hard, right? But look at the results that can happen. It's amazing. So fun. Well, a heart wall can definitely prevent you from succeeding. It can block you from achieving your potential. Physical effects often include things like neck and shoulder pain, upper back pain, lowered immunity. It affects the thymus gland, of course, which sits right on top of the heart and actually produces T cells, right? So having a heart wall is putting the thymus in continual interference, okay? Makes it harder to heal physically. We think it's also implicated in heart disease, heart attacks, blood pressure problems, and so on. And of course, chest pain, not unusual. How many of you have seen somebody who was having some kind of chest heaviness that got better with the release of a heart wall? Yeah, weight that they felt go away. How many of you have seen somebody with chest pain, where the pain was actually apparently from their heart wall? Yeah. Now scientists are saying that yes, it actually now, they're believing that you can die of a broken heart, okay? And how many of those people actually have a heart wall? Probably at least 93%, right? Maybe more. So respiratory difficulties as well. Well, the heart wall the subconscious will always choose some kind of a material for the heart wall to be made out of. It's literally, of course, made of trapped emotions, but figuratively there will be a more tangible substance, some kind of physical material. Often it's a building material like brick or stone or wood or metal or something like that. Sometimes it's other materials. I've seen everything. Grass, plastic. Listen to this story. I had a lady once who came to me back when I was doing my virtual practice. And her problem was she had a really severe addiction to chocolate, right? Now, everybody likes chocolate pretty much, but she was addicted to it. And I mean, she was eating it constantly and couldn't leave it alone, and she was ballooning, and it was really a bad thing. So I checked her, and she had a heart wall. Guess what her heart wall was made out of? Dark chocolate, I don't know, like 92% cacao or whatever. Yeah, it's really interesting. So I started clearing the emotions. It took me about 3 sessions, got rid of all the emotions. Suddenly she couldn't stand chocolate, couldn't stand the smell of it even. It took a year before she was able to finally start having a little bit and just enjoying it normally. So the pendulum finally swung back. You might not ever see that again, but just in case, there's one for you. So often there's a personal affinity. It's often a strong material. Sometimes symbolizes safety or pleasure. Sometimes it's a material that you hate if you are, punishing yourself or angry at yourself for something. And there's a story in the book about that. So you don't necessarily need to know what the heart wall material is. The subconscious will always choose some symbolic material. You don't necessarily need to know that. But it's interesting because of the symbolism. And I usually start by asking, is it made of wood? And if the answer to that is no, I'll ask if it's harder than wood or softer than wood and so on. And then you can ask how thick it is. And that's kind of fun because you can see that thickness come down with each emotion that you release, right? Most of you are familiar with this. So really, the heart wall is like a bomb shelter around your heart. And it's a perfect protection, okay, when you need it. But it's great for when the bombs are falling. But when the bombs stop falling, if you continue to live in a bomb shelter, then you're missing out on a lot of life. That makes sense? Now, of course, heart transplants. The heart has its own unique intelligence, and it contains memories and feelings. And transplant recipients often report receiving the affinities or the memories or the loves of the donor. How many of you have heard those stories? Okay. This lady, for example, was not a beer drinker until she got a heart transplant from a young guy who was killed in a motorcycle accident. Suddenly she starts craving beer and green peppers. And then later found out from the family. In fact, she found that when she would go to places that she'd never been before, she would sometimes have memories of being there, and she would know the area. And it turned out those are places he'd been, and he craved green peppers and drank beer. So sometimes even handwriting will change. You ever heard of that? Yeah, you've seen that happen? Yeah. That's weird, right? Well, my handwriting's totally different now, and it's the handwriting of the donor. That's kind of spooky, but that happens. Musical preferences change a lot, okay? Memories that don't seem to be their own. There was a 47-year-old man, for example, who received the heart from a 17-year-old boy. The recipient was surprised by his new love of classical music. He discovered later that the donor, who loved classical music and played the violin, had died in a drive-by shooting, clutching his violin case to his chest. Another one, 7-year-old girl had recurring nightmares about being killed after receiving the heart of another child who had been murdered. And her descriptions of the murder, as well as the murder weapon, helped lead to the arrest and the conviction of the killer, of the donor. Think about that. The moral of that story is if you're going to get a heart transplant, make sure it's not from someone who was murdered. Okay? Well, the heart is really a second brain. It's not just a pump. It has an elaborate nervous system and lots of gray matter and white matter, just like the brain itself. And the brains in our heads obey the messages sent by the brains in our hearts. So if you're wondering why maybe your life isn't exactly how you want it to be, you may want to go that way with your conscious mind. If your heart's going that way, where are you going? You're going that way. Does that make sense? I believe the heart really actually is the subconscious. It's the seat of the subconscious. That's what I think. Okay? I could be wrong, but here's the heart wall flow chart. Any questions about the heart wall, how to find heart walls or clear heart walls? We're good. All right, awesome.